All right, good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, depending where in the country you are joining us. We are so excited to have you here for our second summer PC Power Hour session. Today's session is all about building community, engaging our new and current scholars. We are so excited to be getting close to the fall semester, although it feels as though the summer, as always, flies by. So we're going to get into it because we do have a packed agenda as always, and we want to make sure that our guest speakers have plenty of time to share. So here's a quick agenda overview of what to expect for today. So we are just so excited to share with you our plans for the new scholar welcome. We are getting ready to welcome our biggest cohort of scholarship recipients this year. So we're going to start off giving you an overview of what this year's new scholar welcome looks like. My colleague Chris over here is going to provide best practices on inviting scholars on campus, encouraging orientation sessions to get that sense of belonging, to start building that sense of community on campus. And then what we really want to focus on here today are two partner college examples, and we're calling these the Partner College Spotlight. So we've been very fortunate enough to invite two of our partner college scholar advisors, amazing representatives. We have an example from one of our newer partner colleges, Farmingdale State College in Long Island, New York. Dylan Gaffarian is here, director of the RAM program. Farmingdale State College joined us as a new partner college last academic year. And so I think because we have 17 new partner colleges joining us for this fall, we thought it'd be a great example to share with a newer PC what that process has looked like in terms of onboarding their first cohort of the TheDream.Us scholars on campus. And then we thought it'd also be interesting for our new PCs as well as our returning PCs to hear from one of our veteran campuses, John Jay College of Criminal Justice. So we have Denise from John Jay, our immigrant students from the Immigrant Student Success Center, who's been doing this for a long time and can share how the work has progressed over the years and what that programming looks like at John Jay. And then finally, we have our Director of Scholarships, Elena, on the line. Renewal decisions are going out this week, and so we want to make sure everyone is kept abreast of the latest news there with renewals and give you a heads up on what to expect, especially as you'll likely start getting a lot of questions from scholars as they receive their renewal notifications. Okay, so let's jump into it. The New Scholar Welcome 2023. So our New Scholar Welcome, for those of you who may not know or may need a quick refresher, is our flagship event. It happens every year in early August, and it's an opportunity to welcome our scholarship recipients officially for the first time to our community. It's a really exciting, fun event. This year, as I mentioned, it's a historical cohort. We are celebrating over 1,800 new scholars across two of our programs, the National Scholarship Program and the Opportunity Scholarship Program. This is a unique year with this many new scholars, with 17 new partner colleges joining us. And this is an hour-long session where we really focus on providing our scholars a sense of belonging on campus. This session is open to new scholars, current scholars, alumni. It's really a moment to pause, reflect, celebrate, and be thankful for this community that we're all part of. And it's also the first time our new scholars are meeting thousands of their peers, whether it be on campus in person or through virtually on this session. And we strive to have our scholars feel as though they're part of something bigger. So not only being a moment to welcome our new scholars onto their partner college campuses, but also giving them a sense of that they're part of something bigger and part of a real national movement of an undocumented community. Okay, so this year's New Scholar Welcome will take place August 10th. It starts at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, 11 a.m. Pacific time. The theme this year is You Are the Change, and I want to quickly emphasize how we came up with this theme. You know, starting last year, the majority of our scholarship recipients do not have DACA, do not have TPS, do not have work authorization. This is truly, we've turned the corner in the students that we serve. You all are seeing it on your campuses. And with the stalemate right now at the federal level with immigration reform, there is this sense of overall doom and gloom. Students are being questioned or questioning themselves why they should attend college. States like Florida and Texas are increasingly making our immigrant communities feel unwelcome, putting folks in a state of fear. And we want to challenge that narrative. I'm actually here in Chicago, just coming off of the annual Unidos conference where Gabby Pacheco, our Director of Advocacy, Communications, and Development, was honored for her work as an immigrants' rights leader. And she made this very important point that we do not need to wait for laws to change for us to take action. We can be the change. And in fact, there is so much happening at the state level driven by the community. And it's in fact the community and the immigrants and the students themselves that create the change. And it doesn't have to hinge on your immigration status. So this is the message we want to drive home. We want to inspire, and this is a big part of this welcome. Attendance is mandatory here for all of our new scholars, and we've been communicating so in all of our emails to them. So we've lined up guest speakers who speak to this theme. As always, our co-founder, Don Graham, loves to welcome our new scholars, share his words of wisdom. Our alumni speaker this year is Iwa. She is a Trinity Washington University alum. Iwa has been asked to join us because of her inspiring story. She wrote a beautiful piece, an article about how the state of Maryland can be doing more for undocumented immigrants in higher education. She pointed out the fact that right now in the state of, or should I say, at the time in 2021, the state of Maryland did not provide licensure to undocumented immigrants. Her article inspired a chain of events, and we are so happy to celebrate the fact that earlier this year, we like to affectionately call it Iwa's Bill, was signed into law so that undocumented immigrants and immigrants regardless of immigration status can obtain licensure in the field of healthcare. So all healthcare professionals can now obtain licensure regardless of their immigration status. So Iwa will share her words of wisdom, give tips to our new scholars on how to navigate college and be the change. And then every year we invite a partner college president to address our community as well, to really drive home that sense of belonging on our college campuses. Again, at a time where in-state tuition, state aid is being threatened for so many undocumented communities, it is so important to hear from our partner college presidents to know that leadership is invested in supporting this community. Dr. Jose Luis is an old friend from CUNY. He's now the president of Northern Arizona University, which is a new partner college joining us, a huge immigrants' rights advocate himself. And also we wanted to shine a light on the state of Arizona. And again, focusing on those wins that are happening at the state level with Prop 308 that granted in-state tuition again back to our undocumented students. And then as always, Gabby Pacheco is going to provide her words of inspiration to close out the event. And then drum roll, this is yet to be announced. So this is the first time we're sharing the news with all of you, but we do have our keynote speaker for this year. Our keynote speaker is Congressman Luis Gutierrez. So he is the first Latino congressman from the state of Illinois. He's been a House rep for almost 3 decades, a huge longtime champion of immigration reform and just social justice issues in general. He is an incredibly dynamic, motivational speaker, and he was just so excited and honored to address our incoming new scholars this year. And again, we hope that he can speak to the power of change and using your voice to drive change. So we hope we're getting you jazzed for this new scholar welcome with this agenda that we've prepared, and just a couple of logistics and follow-up for things for you to be thinking about as partner college staff. So the registration link is linked in these slides. As always, the recording and the slides will be shared in the Partner College Weekly tomorrow, so you'll have access to all of this information. I believe my colleague will also be dropping the link in the chat. We also are asking our partner colleges to let us know if you're planning to host a watch party on campus. So if you're planning to bring your students on campus in person and watch the new scholar welcome together as a group and host your own on-campus welcome day, please let us know by filling out this Google form that's also linked here. This is exactly what Denise and Dylan will speak to in terms of how they utilize this new scholar event as a catalyst for driving engagement on campus and having that first in-person contact with new scholars that sets the stage for that academic year and driving community. And then lastly here, there's a link to a flyer that you can start also promoting to your own scholars, emailing. I know they're most responsive to scholar advisors. So there's a flyer here that's linked that you can also start emailing directly out to your scholars. They've also been receiving it from us. And then lastly here, a quick update with the new Scholar swag. We will again be sending some drawstring bags, pens, and stickers your way. Thank you for confirming your mailing address. For our Scholar advisors, we're also going to be sending you all a t-shirt. We are so appreciative of all you do. And so we hope this little token of appreciation just tells you how much we care about you all, besides just telling you all every time we meet. So those should be arriving next week, and delivery information, tracking information should be updated in the PC Weekly either this week or next week. Okay, so finally, I'll just say as an incentive here, this is a fabulous picture of the TheDream.Us team, plus our Camilla, who cannot be there in person for this photo, so she is superimposed on the wall. But we are offering to bring pizza and be there in person for those staff members who can. So if you fill out that Google form, if you plan on having an in-person event, please feel free to also reach out to your relationship manager and see if they're available to join you in person. It's always a great opportunity for us to interact with scholars because we don't get as frequent of an opportunity as we would like to. We will bring pizza with us to be on campus. I was at Farmingdale State last year, and it was just such an exciting opportunity to welcome new scholars and new college. And it's just a wonderful opportunity for us to get to connect with you all as well. All right, so we're going to transition here out of the new scholar welcome. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. We'll also have time here a little later for any questions. But moving into best practices for what you can start doing to engage new scholars. One of the things we've been noticing in our Facebook community, we've had our new scholars join our Facebook community. Students are also reaching out to ISTS program support. They're emailing us and wanted to address some of the frequently asked questions that are coming up. So scholars are definitely asking who my scholar advisor is. They're looking for that first contact of who to start talking to on their partner college campus. They're asking, how will my campus know that I'm a TheDream.Us scholar so that my scholarship will get processed? And a lot of these questions are starting to come up because we are seeing students ask about why they're getting notices about their unpaid balance for the fall. They may have registered for classes, and without knowing that they're a scholarship recipient and knowing that the funds are coming their way, their classes may be dropped. So this is causing some anxiety for students. And these are some of the common questions that we're hearing from our scholars. And then, of course, the most important question in mind is, how will I actually receive my scholarship and how will I get my stipend? So in order to start addressing some of these questions, I'm going to hand this off to my colleague, Chris.
Thank you so much, Hayne. And hola, mi gente. Great to be here, back to see you all the faces. I love when I get to see you guys and just connect with these sessions. They're the highlight of my month. So as Hayne was saying, we do have a number of questions and inquiries from students who still have these kinds of questions. And so we want to make sure that we are re-emphasizing the importance of reaching out to your scholars. As you guys already know, I was a scholar advisor at Hunter College in CUNY, and a lot of this I used to really sort of set the stage for students and really sort of let them know, once they were awarded the scholarship, that I was their contact person, and if they had questions or concerns, that they could feel free to reach out to me. One of the things I also did was I didn't feel the necessary to actually answer all their questions immediately, because I knew that I was going to have an orientation session where I would be able to lay out the entire ground for students and also answer their questions in live time and really sort of in person. So that went a long way, just letting students know, hey, I know you have questions, I know you have concerns. These are the major things that you need to be worried about right now. And then everything else will be covered during this orientation. So just make sure you come to the orientation, and we will, definitely be able to go through the entire process of how the scholarship works, and get all of your answers, get all of your questions answered, right? So that's a way you can sort of manage it, because I know it's a lot, and to field dozens of questions from students. And so what I would do is usually just put everyone on one email chain and just let them know, again, these are the major things you need to be focusing on right now. And then on so-and-so day, We're all gonna meet, we'll talk this through, and you'll get all of your other questions answered, right? And it did wonders, right? Like my students were always felt calm, and they felt like, okay, I know what I need to know right now, and then I'll hold my questions and be able to sort of, again, have this session where we can talk this through. And so I'll just hold on that rather than sort of just emailing everyone trying to like figure out what the response is, or have that anxiety of my classes are going to get dropped, I'm going to get late dues on my payments. So all of that information was provided to them in advance of actually having the orientation, with the caveat that the orientation will cover everything else. And it really sort of set the stage for students to know what to expect and how to move forward with the process. So strongly, strongly recommend, if you have not already reached out to your students, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm a little sick, that you please do so before the new scholar welcome on the 10th, and just let them know, hey, this information is coming, but this is what you need to know right now. Hank, could you go on to the next slide? Awesome. So again, I used to run orientation at Hunter for all of my TheDream.Us scholars. And when I went through the process, right, I kind of noticed something. I noticed that when students get that initial email from the TheDream.Us telling them that they've been accepted, it's a huge excitement, right? And it almost feels like surreal to them. And they just sort of feel sort of all these emotions and whatnot. But it's not until I had that in-person session that it sort of like really truly sunk in for them. And a lot of them would come to me at the end of the session and be like, oh my God, thank you for having this. Like, it actually feels real now. Like, I'm here, I see my peers, we are a community. I see you, I see the team, I see all of the support services that we have. Excuse me again, I'm sorry. And so it really sort of ignited what I call hopes, right? It's like their hope of what their next 2 to 4 years is going to look like, and how they can be supported in going through their college journey, right? And so, of course, being me, I have to create a nice little acronym for hopes. And so these are my top 5 objectives for an orientation, right? And so again, being kind of corny, I'm going to implement the hopes analogy to sort of outline this. Now, this is mine. This is just sort of a broad scope. You could have 6, you could have 7, you could have 1, right? This is just sort of to get you thinking in ways that you can structure this and really sort of plan out what you want to include in your orientation sessions, right? So first for H, I had highlight scholar responsibilities, right? As scholars want to know what they need to do in order to keep their scholarship. What GPAs do I need to have? Do I need to go full-time or part-time? Like, what is it that I need to do so that I can make sure that this opportunity does not get eliminated from me, and that I can continue to go and complete my college career. The next piece is outline the scholarship process and answer scholar inquiries, right? So the next thing is, now that I know what I got to do, how does this work? What else? How does it function? How does my tuition get paid? How does my stipend get released, right? So all of the different processes that go along with that should also be included in your orientation, so that students have a firm understanding of what the scholarship entails and how they can move on with the process. For P, we have provide scholar support network and community, right? So this is another big, huge piece. And Hayne like nailed me this morning, and she was like, you gotta make sure you're nailing this community piece. Scholars need to know that they have a community, right? So a lot of times this is the first opportunity for them to meet other scholars in person, have that community of peers that they can talk to and relate to and have similar backgrounds where they can connect, but also to know who on campus is there to support them. And so I'll lay this out a little bit more in the next slide. So I'll just leave that as is. The next piece is express your campus commitment to supporting undocumented student success. So again, a huge piece of this is really for the students to know that they are in a supportive environment and that you are there to make sure to help them navigate their college process. And then finally, set scholar expectations, right? If scholars know how the program runs and what is expected of them and what they can reach out for services and support for, then you are managing their expectations, which eases anxiety and allows the student to really run through the process a lot more efficiently and effectively. Hayden, can I get the next slide, please? Awesome. So as we usually do, I wanted to provide you guys something that you could take away from this presentation. So I provided a sample orientation agenda. I've included the link in the chat, but it is also going to be linked on the PowerPoint itself. Again, as I say with everything else, this is a toolkit. You look at it, you see what works for you, and you can pull and just adjust it to what makes the most sense for you. But in hitting those 5 points that we just covered, there's just some ways that you can sort of lay this out in your orientation on campus, right? So one of the things that I'm super grateful for, a big shout out to Aya Aravanian at Hunter College. She was the Vice President of Student Affairs at Hunter College. She was our PRM for TheDream.Us and my boss. Aya always made time to make sure that she did the opening remarks for our students for the orientation, right? And it was so highlighting for students and reaffirming for students to see someone at that caliber, a dean, a vice president, a president, come in and really set the mark and acknowledging that this is not just a small program, but this is a college culture of supporting the specific population. Aya also sort of expressed her own immigration story, which I think students really resonated with and inspired to see someone of that caliber who was also an immigrant sort of reach that level and then come back and embrace them into the college atmosphere. So again, strongly recommend if you can pull that and make that off, it really helps resonate the program and the support for students. Second, you want to make sure that you have each member of your Dream.Us team at your orientation. So your college career liaison, the mental health service liaison, scholar advisor, of course, but you want to make sure that students are being able to see the team members who are there to support them, and maybe even include in your presentation a slide with everyone's contact information that you can make available to students after the orientation. So they not only do they see it in person, they have a reference guide where they can go back to and find those people when necessary, when they need those particular supports. And the scholarship overview is basically, again, a lot of this information is in the guide. So you'll see from the agenda, it sort of outlines what is on that orientation. So of what is in the guide and those specific pages. That is particular information that we always get questions on, that students have questions on. So if you can outline that for students on the onset, then it gives them a strong foundation of how to navigate the scholarship moving forward. And then again, their responsibility. So GPAs, how do they part-time, full-time status, completing those annual renewals. We all know that they need to do that, right? And so just outlining what are the specific responsibilities that they have in order to keep their scholarship. And then finally, additional support services. You guys on campus have tons of different supports, whether it be a reading and writing center, a math tutoring lab. Make sure that students are aware of your in-house resources, as well as the resources from the Dream.Us. We always say we are more than a scholarship and provide additional resources to students on immigration help. We have the ITIS Scholar Portal. The Scholar Hub on our website has a ton of resources that students can find information on. And then I know it's crazy, but our Scholar Facebook page is popping. Like, students are not on Facebook, but they are on our Facebook, and they have a great community where they can share resources. and just support each other. So make sure that students know of all of the different communities that are here to support them, because it goes a long way in, again, setting the stage for them and allowing them to succeed. And with that overview process, I will introduce our next speaker, Dylan, who is going to get like in the grains of what this looks like at Farmingdale.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited to be a part of this. I will say, as a new campus, we've done this. This is now our second cohort. I'm still scared. The new scholar orientation, it was like so much to learn all at once, and it was such a learning curve. So to the 17 new campuses, just be prepared. It takes a minute to get prepared, but working with TheDream.Us has been an amazing experience. Hayden, Chris, you guys have been terrific answering all of our emails. So I want to start off by thanking you all for being so supportive, because while we're going through this process, there's a lot of new things that we're learning on the fly that we've now taken into consideration as we start planning this new scholar orientation for our cohort 2. So thank you guys for all of your support. But this is a really important event. We have now, this is our second cohort we're welcoming. We only offer in person. We want every student to be together to form that community right away. We are very lucky here at Farmingdale. We've kind of adopted the model that this is not just a scholarship. It's not just a transactional, here's your money, here's your, classes for the next semester. It is a community, it is a family, and it starts at the top, and it starts with this programmatic effort from the entire institution. So we do very much push that this is an in-person event for our students to join us. We are a relatively small campus here at Farmingdale. For specifically Dream.Us, we only have about 40 students in the program to our 10,000 students at Farmingdale. So we're relatively small with the interaction with Dream.Us, but we've really taken on the identity of this being a family and a program. And we really want that to start day one at the new scholar orientation. And so at the new scholar orientation, it was very, very important from the get-go while we were designing the program, get the right people in the room. We needed to make sure that the people that were not only responsible for bringing Dream to us here at Farmingdale was there, but the presidents, the vice presidents, the provosts from academic affairs, those that support our students with mental health services, tutoring, the scholars, everyone to be in one room at the same time, because the community is not just the students, it's also the people that work with them. And that was so important to make sure that our vice president for academic affairs, our provost, was there in the room with us, making sure that the students were recognized with the faces of those that are not only here to support them, but are really here to better them throughout their entire education experience. So starting, if I'm to provide any tip, that's it. Get the right people in the room from the very, very beginning, because it's not just about the students and the scholar, the new scholar advisor, it's the entire community that's supporting the students. It is a collaborative effort. We've been so lucky to have the right people at all times working with our students, including financial aid and having the people in student accounts. The ability to pick up a phone and call those people directly has been a huge lifesaver for our students. We can get them directly on the phone and make changes right there on the fly. This is kind of an outline of our new scholar orientation. Last year, our first year doing it, we started about an hour before the virtual session started. And we found last year that we were condensing a lot of information very quickly in a short amount of time. So this year we're starting about 2 hours before. And it starts with an introduction from the important leaders on our campus who are really instrumental in setting the tone and the vision of not only Dream, but Farmingdale in general. So we start off with a brief introduction from them. And then more importantly, we introduce them to the team that they'll be working with on a day-to-day basis. That includes myself, that includes the folks from the Office of Philanthropy, to really make sure that they're getting the right people to know who do I get my check from? Who do I get my stipend from? Not just going to some random office in the middle of the semester. I know exactly who I can go to. And so we want to introduce those people right away, very early on. Another thing we really try to do with our new scholar orientation, and this might be a bit taboo, I want to start with the fun. I always design with the fun first. I want this to be a fun and a celebratory experience. I think, Chris, you kind of nailed it on the head before. This is important. This is a huge accomplishment. it's a weight off of some students' shoulders, and it should be celebrated right away. And so I always like to make sure that we start with the fun, and then we fuse in all the important elements as well, because a good advisor, a good trickery is, they start with the fun and then they learn a lesson, but they don't even know they're learning something. So we always start with the fun. And so we try to do as many different activities right away, team building activities, really for them to feel like a community right off the bat. And so we do silly pipe cleaner challenges, things that you are all in higher ed very familiar with, but we start right away with the fun, and then we infuse the outcomes right behind it. So we do cahoots. We want them to kind of set the standard for where everyone's at, find a middle ground, an even playing field of different experiences. So it's all out in the open right away. Of course, lunch is always very, very important. I mean, that's kind of why most of them come, is because, not for me, it's for the food, but we provide them with a lunch while we're doing that. And during this year's, because we now have students that have already been a part of our first cohort, we're inviting cohort 1 back to be panelists. I think it's really important that they hear from other students. I'm paid to say how great we are, at Farmingdale. The students aren't. And I think it's very important to get the pulse from the students, their experience from day one. Something else we learned really early on with the transition of the new scholar orientation, there were a lot of different elements that we were not fully prepared for. And one of the big ones was in-state tuition and having some students eligible for our New York State in-state tuition programs and stuff. Last year, if I could be so honest, it was not the best experience. We had students getting random emails from our institution saying, hey, you owe this. And it's scary, it's frightening. And we weren't prepared to catch them ahead of time. This year we are. So what we're doing at this new scholar orientation is we are emailing all of our students. We have had phone calls with them. We're having them bring all the necessary documentation they need that day, because a lot of times it requires a notary here in New York. And we want them to take care of all this stuff right away. So we've dedicated a good chunk of time this new scholar orientation to make sure that all the necessary TAP applications, DREAM Act scholarship applications, if it's not done, they're prepared for it and they know what needs to be done in the future. Because we really want to make sure that when they start college, they start college. They're not worrying about the minutia. They can just start class. And I think that's our job as scholars or new scholar orientators or advisors, is making sure that they can focus on school, not all the other stuff. And so we want to start really early on, making sure that all the documentation for in-state tuition here in New York is taken care of. And I'm sure a lot of other colleges in other states have similar protocols. And I think that's important to get that done right away. And then we joined the live stream. And I think that's always, a great time. We love the live stream, but we really wanted to start this element of community. Hayden, if you wouldn't mind jumping to the next slide. As I said earlier, we're not just a scholarship, or at least we don't want to be a transactional scholarship. We really want to build the program into a program with certain cornerstones. And I'm sure everyone has their own variations of this. And for us, it's that community engagement. We want our students to feel like a family day one. As corny as it is, and trust me, the students tell me it's corny all the time, they are a family, and I want them to be as such. We do family dinners at least 2 or 3 times a semester. We get together, usually later on in the afternoons or in the evenings, and we do potluck style. People bring foods from different countries, different parts of the world, different experiences, and we share it together. And it builds that community right away. I mean, I know a lot of us are not necessarily getting programmatic funds. This doesn't require any money. Everybody joins in together. The students, these students, well, are bringing some of the best food I've ever had in my life. And it's just so fun to be a part of their experiences and learning from each other. So community engagement's a big cornerstone of what we do. We also have a group chat. I'm sure a lot of you have that as well, with like a WhatsApp or a GroupMe. The scholars really, really love that. It makes their life a lot easier. We never want a student to feel isolated. We don't want them to think that their only identity is DREAM. They are a part of many other identities as well, but we want them to know that they always have that backing, those 40 other scholars who get it, who lived it and know their experiences. So the community engagement is really important for us. We also want to infuse, and this is not, I want to say this quite specifically and lightly, we are not helping students with their immigration status updates. We are not lawyers. We don't know a lot of that, but we try to spend a lot of time on literacy about their immigration status and their financial statuses. We want to help them learn what they're going through, but we do not by any means give them legal advice. Just want to make sure everyone hears that. This is recorded for quality purposes. I'm not giving legal advice, but we point them in the right direction. And I think it's important that they know that we're in this with them. So we try to go over a lot of immigration literacy. We're very lucky to have some really great people at the institution who can point these students in the right direction and connect them. And we do that a lot with the help of Dream as well. We also do academic excellence, right? We want to make sure that they are performing exceptionally well. We do something a little, I think it might be unique. We try to block book our students, our new scholars, into the same FYE course. So either it's just the same scholars and it's just them, or they're in a class with other students, but the core 17, 20 students that are coming in together, they have at least one class together. So we block book the FYE 101 for Farmingdale, and we found that to be really helpful as well. They can start taking some of these classes together. They get to know each other a little bit sooner. And in the academic setting. And then finally, thanks to Dream, we've now just started the research and internship opportunities. Getting our students out in the real world early on has been super helpful. So we've added that as a cornerstone because we want them to always, pardon the cliche, but begin with the end in mind. What is waiting for them at the end of the road, good, bad, or indifference, and how can we help them through that process? And research and internships has been super helpful. But overall, that's kind of our little best practices, if you will. We say they're best practices, but this is year 2. So we're going to find out how best these really are. But we're very excited for what Dream has afforded these students and where we're getting to go with this. It all starts with this new scholar orientation. It sets the foundation, and with the right people in the room having a good time, it sets the stage. But thanks everyone for giving me this opportunity. I'm around if anyone does have any questions at any point. We're still learning, so I'm excited to hear more about what John Jay's doing.
Hi, hi Dylan. Thank you so much. It was really great. I know you mentioned you came to like learn from us, but I'm learning a lot from you. So this is why these spaces are so helpful. So hi everyone. My name is Denise Vivar, and I manage the Immigrant Student Success Center at John Jay College. I think just some background or information about sort of like some of the information. My role is a primary manager of the TheDream.Us, but I also support other students that are not part of the TheDream.Us. So my work in reality involves the overall undocumented and immigrant student community at John Jay. And which is why my work might be different, as I have my full-time role is to be able to provide support to this cohort of students, and the TheDream.Us does fall under that. And just with that, I know people started with orientation, and I'll start a little bit backwards. You'll see a photo of our 2023 undocumented grad celebration. It happened this previous May. Chris Aviles was there sharing space with us. And these spaces are important too, because they can give students a vision towards the end, right? What does the end look like? And like as they're coming in. So we do give students their stalls, we invite their families, we invite different speakers. But particularly this space is for undocumented and immigrant students that have shared experiences. Because then it creates a sense of community, but again, a sense of recognition, and that the work that they have done is valuable, as many times they have navigated different experiences that are not common to other students. So we invite a lot of student speakers to share some of those experiences, so they can feel like together, right? Even as they're like leaving, that it still feels very close to the work that they put in. So I did wanted to kind of just share this, that we kind of starting with that. Next slide, please. My slide has a lot more information, and I know sometimes it's a lot, so feel free to text any questions. But I like to start pre-orientation, because we do a lot of work even before getting to the orientation. The moment the awards letters goes out to students, like I email students right away, like check your email, make sure you got it, right? Like, you know, like I've been informed that you have been awarded, just make sure you got it. I know this year there were some students that had not received the award email, so like troubleshooting since the beginning, because then that can also help students feel that there's someone that they can connect with, that it's also outside of the Dream.Us, because I know these are also high school students learning to navigate adulthood, but they're learning to navigate adulthood differently, right? Since many of the things or their immigration status impacts many of these processes. So this way they feel that there's already someone that they contact if they start feeling like the Dream.Us is like a national thing and they might feel intimidating to reach out to. Sometimes that one-on-one call that can be like really relatable to students, and students can feel comfortable asking all the questions because sometimes they don't have the right questions. So kind of like approaching them from a sense of like, I'm here to help you. You can ask me any questions. Since a lot of them do have a lot of questions. And many of them also sometimes find themselves a little bit confused about the scholarship and exactly like what it is. So that's where the initial conversation happens. Again, I do a lot of one-on-one calls. So after confirming that students accept their scholarship, my follow-up calls include asking them, have they accepted John Jay? Have they applied for the New York State Dream Act? Have they submitted everything for in-state tuition? So sort of like checking all the check boxes, their immunization. I know the question I get a lot from these calls are students are like, when is my scholarship gonna come? When does it come? So I kind of do that, like those kind of answering questions at the beginning, because I know a lot of them are also first generation navigating college alone. So sometimes they might not have no one to answer like all those questions. So I think that's where we do a lot of that kind of work before they even do the orientation, before all these other things. I also connect them with campus support team. So I am a strong believer that I cannot do this work alone. And the reason why is because there's a lot of students too, right? But also encouraging or empowering students to reach out to other people at John Jay, right? So then this sense of belonging, it's not just the Immigrant Student Success Center, it's just for them, but that they also belong in financial aid offices, academic support offices, and that they can reach out to them. And we do this by connecting them with our academic and financial aid support folks. Since the work also gets kind of distributed, as I mentioned, it's a team effort. So I'm also sharing on the chat on like a non-docu LS spotlight support that we also send out. And these are key people that have been trained and also have experience working with undocumented immigrant students for years now, in which they feel that in case they need one person to go to, those are the people. Sometimes I end up doing the referral or so on, but most of the time I encourage them to do it and also send them like template emails on how to reach out to people because they're really learning all of this. They're learning from sending emails to like being formal and checking emails and all these things. And then we plan the orientation. So the orientation, I have one of the big goals, and it is for me to get to know them. And the reason why is because every student is so different. Every case is so different that I think I need to get to know them in order for me to be able to provide the best support services to them because every case is different. So I do work on a case-by-case model in which I make sure like I get to know the student, I get to know whatever they feel comfortable sharing with me, memorizing their names and so on, just so that when they come into campus, like I know them, they're familiar, and I can kind of like relate to them at that kind of level. This is also an opportunity for tours. Many of these students just accepted, just got the scholarship and haven't had the orientation. I know the John Jay orientations are later in August, like mid-August. So I also provide and give them like a tour, more kind of like smaller tour that can also be helpful for the students, those that decide to come in like earlier too, because we do it earlier than the session. Community building activities. I think Dylan talked a lot about this. So I appreciate for that because I think that's also one of our values in supporting students. Many times these students are navigating challenging immigration issues. So sometimes it's helpful to create a community outside of like academic, outside of all these things. I think it's just important that students know that there's other students navigating things that are similar. And from one of the things that I've learned, through all these years has been that they're the best support systems for themselves. Like they are the best people. I know for this previous year that graduated, a lot of the students participated in a lot of internship fellowships and they share all of that information. And sometimes those are things that I don't know about. Those are things that I might not be aware at the moment because they're the ones applying to these things. They're the ones asking the questions many of the times. So sometimes they go back into like sharing with other students about this opportunity is undocumented student friendly. This opportunity is this, I did this. So they're the best spokespeople for those students kind of coming in and navigating all these different challenging kind of like circumstances that they might go through. Info and support services on campus, also super important, right? Which services are undocument friendly, which services they might need. I know at John Jay, I really promote the emergency funding, the food pantry specifically. And it's important to provide context and all, like at the beginning and sharing these services, because sometimes these students come from like low income, first generation, and many times there's a lot of sort of shaming and asking for additional support. Especially with the Dream.Us students, I've seen that a lot of them feel so thankful to the scholarship and to the funding and to everything that many times they don't approach the center or other people asking for additional support in terms of things that they might be like going through housing insecurity, food insecurity, all these things. So I make sure to share it since the beginning to remove a little bit of that kind of shame that students might be feeling. Because I did used to see that a lot from students where they wouldn't share because they would say like, oh, like I'm just getting so much money and doing all this is to kind of like removing a lot of the stigma and requesting additional support services that may exist. Swag, I know the Dream.Us sent some last year, they're sending some now. We also gave a lot of swag from the Immigrant Student Success Center. And that can be a fun way to like get students to feel a little bit like proud of their college, of them being there. I know a lot of them started sharing it on Instagram. So that's always helpful. And we also provide students with a one-pager because I do not expect students to know everything when they go because it is a lot of information. So I think that's super important, right? Like giving them something or a tool that they can take with them, because many times everything is new. They're learning all of this. They're learning the college life. They're learning the Dream.Us scholarship. So sometimes it can feel really overwhelming. And I'll share the one pager now in the chat, but that's extremely helpful. So then they can always just go back to, instead of feeling like they have to memorize everything that I'm like telling them. And then we go with continuous support. That is important as well in terms of continuing this kind of like support system. So we do provide legal immigration support, not myself, right? I also don't provide legal immigration like legal advice and stuff, but we do have different partners across New York City in which we refer students. I think one thing with this specific cohort that I started last year was specifically that I identify a lot of students that are able to qualify for SITch. So a lot of students, we got a legal immigration attorney to come, not for the Dream.Us orientation, for a general orientation, to then be able to support students and see any students and do legal screenings, because that can also be really helpful. Many times we might not know what immigration relief there exists for students, but for SITch, it's always good to get students that are just coming in. One-on-one meeting, I do have one-on-one meetings. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I learned to not take it personal. I've learned to not sort of like, if they cannot meet, but I know they're doing well, like that, sometimes that's it. And that's where the student is at, and that's okay. Clear policy and communication. I make sure I tell students like when to email me if things come up and all these things. And I think that's also important. Also, I have like in my office an open door policy. If they can just come in, even if I cannot meet because I'm meeting with other students, they can always come back. Communication, emails and awards and stipends, super important. Making sure that students know when their awards are coming. I know for CUNY, it gets very complicated and it gets very long and lengthy. So students ask so many times. I make sure I send emails with any updates that I get from the Dream.Us when their stipends go out to make sure that they do get them. I've also learned that sometimes students don't get their stipends because of other holds or other things, and they'll reach out like a month later. So that kind of helped me be like on top of them to be like, did you receive it? Yes. Okay. Like just checking off. A lot of community building, as I mentioned, I do manage an Immigrant Student Success Center, John Jay. So I do make sure that a lot of my programming is based on community building. So I'll share like our Instagram so you can all see a little bit more of the type of things that we do. As I mentioned, I do support a large population of students, but we do a lot of fun stuff. I know this past year we hosted our first retreat, that it was so much fun and just kind of helps connect students a little bit more. Other things that kind of help me keep connected to the students after this, and that has been extremely helpful, has been the Dream.Us internship and fellowship. That was extremely helpful to like kind of like reconnect with some students that might not have like reach out to me or anything. That was extremely helpful to kind of be like, okay, you want to learn more, you have to meet with me, right? So getting them like that, a little bit of like, I'll share more information, but you have to come into my office, or I'll tell you more. So kind of making sure that I'm able to find creative ways to connect with them that don't feel punitive or don't feel like hostile or don't feel like, oh, like, why you're not doing your responsibilities. So trying to figure out those creative ways. I also check in with them in other creative ways, like when we do have an event and they show up, like I'll check in there. I'll count that as a check-in, specifically to avoid some of those kind of feelings that then they might alienate them for coming back. Academic support, yes, that one was very, like, it's very important. And sometimes students will not tell you or will not share if they're struggling, right? Because there's just a lot of things to it. They're also learning this new like college life and so on. So they will not share. So this is when I do my check-ins with the academic advisor. And we kind of check and make sure that they're doing everything well. But sometimes we don't find out that they're struggling until the end of the year, because that's when we are able to see their grades and so on. So we are able to reach out to them and kind of find ways that we are able to help them to kind of get back on track. And then lastly, retention, right? I think everyone's worried about retention. But I think one thing about this is that sometimes Dream.Us students will also struggle with retention or kind of like staying on, right? And this is where I see it's kind of my responsibility to see what everything within all these kind of categories is not working that can work to support that student. So again, the one-on-one case basis to kind of see what works and for the students to essentially make the best decisions for themselves. I know this is a lot, so I'm happy to share more, but we can go to the next slide. And this is just like a brief overview agenda. You can see Chris, this was our cohort last year. We didn't, a lot of the people that I know, a lot of people mentioned administration and so on. We do invite them, but usually for us to make the students come back during the beginning of the semester, we host a general orientation for undocumented and immigrant students, right? So then it can be both cohort, like both kind of populations of students, and it doesn't feel so divided where like one student gets something and the other students that don't have a scholarship don't get anything. So we do all of that during our general orientation. So we watched the orientation, community building activity. We did a human bingo, food. We went over general prices. And one important thing, we had a student panel. So current Dream.Us scholars share their experience and also just tips navigating college. I think a lot of them had a lot of questions about that. And then for our closing, we had them write a letter to yourselves to read in 1 year. So a lot of them, I will make sure that they read it next year, but I've just been keeping these letters so then they can read it to themselves. And that was pretty like short and simple because we do focus a lot of it on the Dream.Us. We do focus it a lot on the Dream.Us kind of like eligibility and all of that, since that's already a lot of information. I'm gonna share a link. They did create it, sorry, not meant to. Okay, sorry, but I'll share a link to like a quick video that the media team made at John Jay. And it was like the orientation and highlighting different parts of it. So you're free to watch it and at your own time. Yeah, with this, I'll close out. I'm happy to share a little bit more information, but I know we want to leave some time for questions.
So in the interest of time, we do have one more speaker. So we're going to go into that first before we start taking some questions. So hopefully you guys can stick around with us for a bit. But I want to introduce my colleague, Elena, who you all know is our scholarship queen and manages everything data and acceptance and everything else inside and outside of the scholarship to talk to you guys about some of the renewals that are coming out really soon. So take it away, Elena.
Thanks, Chris, and hi, everyone. First off, I wanted to say for anyone who is potentially, this is a side note and has nothing to do with renewals, but it does. Anyone who has potentially sent me an email recently and has not gotten a response, it is forthcoming. I was out of the office for 2 weeks and then came back to having to renew or review renewals for about 2,300 scholars. And all of that finalized last night. So I can now focus on my inbox. So if you have emailed me and haven't gotten a response, I'm sorry, but it is coming. So as Chris and Hayne both mentioned, the decisions will be emailed out to the scholars by the end of this week. And I have already uploaded all of their statuses. So if you were to run up one of your PC Scholar reports, you will be able to see the renewal decisions in that report now, so you can start to see it before those emails go out in case scholars do contact you with any questions. Happy to say the majority of our scholars are being, their renewal has been approved. And so the main decisions that you'll see in there is just renewal approved. And renewal approved with an academic warning. So for those who are whose cumulative GPA was below a 2.0 when they renewed this year, we're giving them an academic warning and letting them know that they have 1 year to bring their GPA up to a 2.0 or higher in order to successfully renew again next year and keep their scholarship. So those are the two main ones there. And then just on the renewals that have been denied, the percentage is very, very small. But we do have a small handful of those who their GPA again is still below a 2.0, so their scholarship is being withdrawn at this point. We have a couple of folks who they've just not had any sort of progress towards their degree. And so we have made the decision to remove their scholarship as well. We've got a number who have received residency, so they are now FAFSA eligible, which is amazing for them and is going to open so many more doors for them. And then we have those that have either timed out or maxed out. And then just on the one that says timed out, the timed out at CC level is their 3 years at the community college. So for those who chose to start at a community college, they're allowed 3 years with the scholarship there, and then they have to move on to the 4-year. So we have a number of folks who are going into their 4th year at the community college level. If you do have anyone in your school that you see has hit that level, and they only have 1 term left before they can move on to the 4-year, please encourage them to fill out the request form for bridge funding. And so that's really for that, they need extra time at the school to get them there. So as long as they have like 15 credits or less, and they're going to actually graduate this fall with their associate degree, encourage them to complete that form. There are a few others in there, but they should all be self-explanatory. We did also have a good number of scholars who declined to renew the scholarship this year because they've graduated, they've received residency, things like that. So you'll also see those statuses when you look at your report. And then, hey, go ahead and switch that. And then, so that column, when you run your report, is going to be column AF, where you'll be able to see that renewal eligibility. And then, as it seems to go every single year, not everybody completes it when they're supposed to. So we are going to do a mini round or a second round from August 7th through 13th. So it's only a week period where they will be able to go in and finish their renewal. So anyone that you see that has a renewal denied incomplete status, we were missing their transcript. And so their transcript was either did not upload correctly, or it was rejected and they never provided it and a corrected copy, or they just never started the form. So they are going to be allowed to complete their renewal, hopefully get it all finished up in this time frame. And then we also have a number of scholars who you will see a status that says reinstatement pending late renewal in August. Those are scholars who have reached out to us that are actually looking for bridge funding. So they're in their final year, they're in their senior year, they have 1 term left to go, and we're going to offer them bridge funding to cover that last term. So anybody you see with the reinstatement pending late renewal, a renewal denied, whether it's incomplete or not started, will have the ability to complete it during this time period. And I think that's everything I have on renewals.
Thank you so much, Elena, for that recap of renewals. Hopefully that helps you guys as you are starting to field questions from students once renewals go out. So I think that wraps up our session. We are at the end of the hour, but if anyone wants to stick around because they have specific questions, I think our panelists will be able to be around for a few more minutes. So again, if you have questions, please feel free to ask any of our panelists about some of the stuff, some of the programming that they're doing, or anything regarding renewals. Stick around with your questions. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for joining us, and please enjoy the rest of your week. We look forward to seeing you guys again next month with some new information. Ciao.
Ciao. Thank you.